Hey guys, LevelCap here, and welcome to another episode of This Week in Gaming. Today, we're taking a look at Battlefield 5's final content update, a whole bunch of different game updates and events being delayed, and much more. We do this show every week, so be sure to subscribe and turn on notifications to catch the next one. Battlefield 5's final content update proved to be pretty significant. It adds 2 new maps, a bunch of guns, gadgets, vehicles, cosmetics, and more. The new maps are Al Marj Encampment and an overhauled version of Provence. Both maps have a strong, era-appropriate look and feel. Provence in particular looks and plays like a proper World War II battlefield map. As for new weapons, some highlights are the Wellgun SMG for the Medic class and the M3 Infrared for the Recon class. The new gadgets range from a double-barreled flare launcher to a flamethrower pistol. Overall, it's a substantial update that adds some nice maps and weapons to the game. Since the launch of the Pacific content, Battlefield 5 has been on something of an upswing in terms of quality of its content. And despite the large TTK change controversy that happened at the end of last year, the actual content DICE has been delivering, when they are delivering content, has been pretty good. Of course, it's a too little too late situation considering the game won't be getting any new maps or weapons in the future. The game is also not in what I think anyone would really call a polished state. Sometime soon, DICE will be rolling out an overhaul to the community game system. This should help give the community more control over the game as DICE moves on to developing and supporting future titles. As a send-off to Battlefield 5, this week's update was bittersweet. DICE released a patch that included a lot of content that players really wanted from the game. But it's frustrating seeing DICE starting to get it together at the very end of support for this embattled game. Hopefully that means the next Battlefield game starts off on the right foot. As for known issues with the update, there are a few notable problems. The game's new weekly challenges were supposed to launch with this update, but due to issues with the menu for the game not appearing, they were disabled this week. The problem has already been fixed, so the changes will launch next week. As a consolation for the issue, all players that log in this week will get 2,000 company coin and 100 points. There's also some problems with missing cosmetics and playlist rotations. Those issues will be sorted out soon. One interesting thing to note is that the game's challenge assignments have been removed. These were randomly generated as you played and didn't add a whole lot to the game, while also hogging up weapon assignment slots. In response to the death of George Floyd at the hands, or rather knee, of Minneapolis police officers, many game companies have announced donations to charities, created internal programs to improve their advocacy for people of color, and changed their release timelines to give the protests more media coverage. Some of the most notable companies voicing support for the protests are EA, ROCKSTAR, Infinity Ward, Epic Games, and Cyberpunk 2077's developers CD Projekt Red. Electronic Arts are donating $1 million to organizations like the NAACP, the Equal Justice Initiative, and others. They're also double matching donations made by employees through the end of June. Beyond donations, EA are also creating a volunteer initiative that gives EA employees a paid day of volunteer work. They'll be providing resources, including lists of volunteer activities that can be done from home. The program is expected to pay out 75,000 hours across EA's global employee pool. Finally, EA will be doing events on June 9th and 19th to support community awareness and volunteering. Infinity Ward are taking a tougher stance against racism in Call of Duty Modern Warfare. The filters used to prevent players from putting racist terms in their usernames, text change, clan tags, and other communications are being amped up to prevent racism from being so prevalent in-game. They'll also be improving the in-game reporting to increase how quickly players are banned for violations. As for the Season 4 update, that has been delayed again to give the protests more focus on social media. Epic Games have also delayed the release of Fortnite's 3rd season for the same reasons. Rockstar Games took Grand Theft Auto Online offline temporarily in honor of George Floyd. The shutdown coincided with the memorial for Floyd and extended to all the games published by Take-Two. CD Projekt Red were going to debut a digital showcase of Cyberpunk 2077 to show off the new gameplay, but they delayed it until June 25th in support of Black Lives Matter. Finally, Sony have delayed their big PlayStation 5 reveal event. This was originally scheduled for the 4th and was going to feature a proper reveal of several launch titles for the next-gen consoles as well as the console itself. Like other companies though, they pushed the event back in support of the protests. Space Sim Elite Dangerous is taking a major step forward next year. The developers have announced its next major expansion of the game, Odyssey. It finally adds space legs to the game, allowing players to walk around their ships, planets, stations, and more. The expansion will include missions that give players a reason to walk around. These range from diplomacy missions to full-on combat situations. Elite Dangerous originally launched in 2014 following a wildly successful Kickstarter campaign. One of the goals of the Kickstarter funding and subsequent content roadmap for the game was proper space legs and FPS gameplay. In the 6 years since launch, these features were some of the most requested and also seemed to be the least important to the developers. It's great to see it happen finally, even if it took 6 years. Rumors and fears popped up this week alleging that DayZ and Arma's developer Bohemia Interactive was being bought out by Tencent. However, according to both companies, this is not true. A report broke this week alleging Tencent had spent $260 million to acquire up to 80% of the developer. Statements by both Bohemia and Tencent deny the buyout. Bohemia CEO stated that despite looking at potential partnerships, the company would remain independent for the foreseeable future. VALORANT's launch this week has gone fairly well, all things considered. It takes the game from closed beta to full release, adds a new map to the mix as well as a new hero. Competitive FPS titles obviously take years to mature, so it's no surprise that there's all sorts of balance and design issues Riot needs to solve out of the gate. The new hero Reyna in particular seems extremely overpowered at the moment. Her abilities essentially let her maintain full health for an entire round, temporary invisibility, and total invulnerability as part of her ultimate. Interestingly, Riot are currently testing a console version of the game internationally. Whether it will ever see the light of day remains to be seen, but pretty much every other major esports game aside from CSGO has a large and active console player base. And it would certainly make sense for Riot to at least explore it as an option, especially with the Xbox Series X touting 120 FPS output. An Australian court has fined Sony for $2.5 million over their deceptive refund system. Sony violated Australia's consumer laws by implying customers didn't have a guaranteed right to a refund, even though the laws explicitly give them these rights. 4 players were told they only had 14 days to get a refund for some games, and the developer had to approve it. Australia's laws guarantee the right to refund a digital product like games or movies with no window on the return. And without reading into that law any further, it does sound a bit like a flawed system that could easily be exploited by consumers. In our final story this week, several EA titles have made their way to Steam. Dragon Age 2, Need for Speed Heat, Command & Conquer Remastered, and more are now available on Steam as part of EA's partnership with Valve. This extends to both their games and the EA Access subscription program. Other notable titles that are part of the deal include Jedi Fallen Order, Apex Legends, FIFA 20, and Battlefield 5. And while Fallen Order already launched on Steam last year, the remaining games are scheduled to launch on Steam this year. EA have stuck with their Origin launcher for years as it was the only launcher that offered their games. Unfortunately for players though, Origin had a pretty rough start and still lags well behind in terms of features and quality compared to Steam. This partnership is a big win for players that prefer Steam or just don't like the idea of digital content being exclusive to a particular store or platform. Anyway guys, that's all the news we have for you this week. Obviously, with everything going on in the world right now, it's no surprise that gaming news is a little bit light. Most of the news revolves around canceled events and content getting pushed back. I hope you're all staying safe and looking out for one another. As always, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe if you haven't already to catch the next episode, and I'll see you next time. This is LevelCap signing off.
And from the Indians, welcome the pilgrims, and for the buffalo, the ones rule the plain. like the vultures circling beneath the dark clouds, looking for the wreck